is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Spawnhour and Theo Ashton. Today we are doing another NFL draft prospect ranking episode, talking about the safeties in this class, and boy am I excited to talk about Emmanwori, Malaki Starks. I think it's going to be a really, really good episode. I think, Matt, you picked this, I imagine, because you're also excited about it. So I'm excited to talk to you guys.
We're just excited on here. We're just excited.
We're just excited, man. And it's March Madness.
And it's March Madness.
And it's March Madness.
You've got to take on that, Theo. But before we get into any of the safety nonsense, before we get into any of the March Madness take, before we even get into your trip to Nebraska, apparently, I want to discuss what you were talking about right before we started recording the podcast. Could you please tell the listeners?
So I got this dollar coin, and I'm wondering who Rutherford B. Hayes is. Who was that? I recognize the name.
It's got to be a president, right?
Was he a president? Rutherford B. Hayes? I'm getting this.
It sounds like a president from the 1800s.
Yes, Rutherford B. Hayes was the 19th president.
Man, he was a president. I thought he did something like he was kind of an Alexander Graham Bell type figure where he was never.
He's got a name for it.
Yeah, I don't remember his presidential reign. But anyway, he's on the dollar coin, and the dollar coin is ruining my life right now because I put them in my coin jar, but really the only coin that should be in this jar is quarters because I use them to do my laundry. And I'm reaching in the coin jar, getting quarters like every week. And I'm just coming up with dollar coins instead of the quarters. And I'm like, I can't use them. I can't do my laundry with them. So I keep putting them back, and the quarters number is going down and the dollar coins number is staying the exact same because it's like I'm not bringing these to pay for anything. I really do have to go to the coffee house and just throw a bunch of doubloons on the table here to pay for my coffee pretty soon to solve my problem. But really, I'm just getting sick of dollar coins in my hand every time I reach for quarters. And that's why I've got one on my desk here today, because I guess I had the bright idea to remove one from the jar and put it somewhere else where I wouldn't lose the money, but it wouldn't be in my jar anymore. So my idea was to place it just on my desk along with a date pit and a picture of my girlfriend. And those are the three things that I have.
Those are the three most important things in Theo's life right now.
Great objects. The reason I wanted you to tell that story is because eons ago on this very podcast, we had a discussion about whether or not you use quarters on a day-to-day basis. And I said I load up on quarters. I would put a $20 bill into the machine and get 80 quarters. And I was called a fool. You guys said nobody uses quarters.
You're still
very strange. I'm not a fool at all. And here's the thing. I don't use quarters that much anymore because my life circumstances have changed.
Switched.
But now that you're in quarter land, I'm glad you've come around, I guess.
That's the problem with using anecdotal evidence to, get your worldview. We had another silly debate recently about eagles versus turkeys and which is you're more likely to see. And I was shocked that you guys thought it was turkey. And I was shocked that the comment section tended to agree. And the reason that everybody, thinks so is because they see turkeys in their yard and they don't know when they see an eagle. Like I promise that's all it is.
I'm sure that's true.
But that's leading into, I'm not even going to try to victory lap or re-bring that up. I'm just talking about anecdotal evidence right now.
I just remember this. I'm not going to bring it up, but remember.
But I was bird watching this weekend in Nebraska. I went to Kearney, Nebraska to watch the crane migration, and I saw hundreds of thousands of cranes swarming above me at sunset, and it was the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I did see more bald eagles than turkeys on that trip.
Did you see any turkeys at all?
I did not see turkeys, but a couple of us went out there, and on the way back, they saw them from the car. So no turkeys, and bird watching, going out to look for birds. It's something I've done probably 1,000 times over the course of my life. And when
How
you
far
go
of a
out
drive
and
is
you're,
that from
and
you, Theo?
that's about 5 hours in Nebraska.
Okay.
So, worth it for the cranes. But I'm just saying, when you go out and you know what all the birds are and you're looking for birds, like you're bound to see a bald eagle or 5, which is the amount I saw. And if you see turkeys, you'll probably see like 50 of them, because they'll all be in a flock. They'll come wandering out of the woods to go peck at the ground or whatever it is they're doing. And then you'll see them more. You'll see more of them more rarely is what will end up happening. So that's how there are more turkeys, but you're more likely to see an eagle, because this is the other thing I keep getting. And I guess I am talking about this again, but you're just because there are more turkeys doesn't mean you're not more likely to see the conspicuous eagle.
Well, I've observed more turkeys than eagles, and I think that's about all the evidence that I personally need, and I don't think anything can disprove that.
And then I submitted that I saw 500,000 eagles on eBird.
You're pumping the numbers. I was going to ask if you record everything on eBird, and if eBird has like accounts and you can go and like review bomb certain birders.
I don't know if you can review bomb. I mean, there's like a birding society.
I would cancel you on eBird if I could.
If you report something that's too rare, like scientists will call your house. I'm dead serious.
That's awesome.
And they'll ask you
what would I have to report to get?
If you reported like some Eurasian rarity or like some bird, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say you reported a skylark in Gahanna, Ohio. They'd probably want to know about that. If you reported a rosette spoonbill in Gahanna, Ohio, they'd probably want to know about that.
That's like the big, like freaky looking ones, right?
Yeah, the ones with the spoonbill, the pink ones. That'd be a good one. I mean, maybe with all the severe weather, like one could blow up from somewhere. So I think there may be some that they just wouldn't even bother about. Like if you reported some like harpy eagle or something like that. But if you report something that's like plausible, but like pretty rare, like there's a pretty good chance either a scientist will call your house or like eBirders will like dox you trying to ask if you're legit or not. Like they'll see it on eBird and they'll be like, what the? And then they'll be like, who said this? And they'll try to find your account and they'll be like, who is this with this username? And then they'll like end up, this chain of events will end up happening that one of them will be knocking on your door being like, excuse me, sir, can you tell me exactly what the field markings were on this bird and where exactly you saw it, like to the step, like exactly what tree it was in? Like someone would be very interested, but that's a whole tirade. I'll let you guys talk.
Okay. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm okay. I was thinking, I mean, frankly, I was a little hungover this morning, and I was thinking how much it would suck to be hungover in like 1870. That was sort of my morning thought. You wake up now and like the big mistake you make, like, I ordered Taco Bell last night and I didn't eat it all, and then there's Taco Bell in my room or something like that. And it's like, that sucks, but it's not that big of a deal. In like 1870, you wake up, you have gangrene. Electricity doesn't exist. Well, it does, but you know what I mean.
You wake up and
you've been bayoneted.
Shot.
It sucks.
You wake up and there's like a roadkill in your room. You're like, what did I?
Right.
God, I didn't
There's
eat
no
that
DoorDash at all back then. And they didn't.
I really cooked roadkill stew last night in my stupor. Fuck. Would there even be roadkill? I guess not. Like animals probably like lived back then. Yeah, sorry, I'm on my conservation shit with that. Animals lived back then. Damn.
But no, I mean, like horses, maybe. I don't know.
They run things over. In Red Dead, they certainly do.
And Red Dead, it's ridiculous, dude. There's nothing. I've killed more animals on accident riding around on my horse in Red Dead than ever I have. I don't think I've ever hit anything.
I've never hit an animal either. Thank God. Maybe a frog or something. Like something.
A deer hit me once.
Ha! Rude.
It did. Just like ran up on the side of my car and just like jumped in. But it got up and like ran off. It didn't like.
It's crazy.
Die or anything, but yeah. And like I go home, my parents like didn't believe me. But
Blaiden,
like, so you. What?
I'm
what's up?
sorry. You had a story that you wanted to share.
It wasn't really a story. Theo asked me before we started recording what my shirt says.
Oh, right.
And it says, "I'm not,
I'm not
arguing.
arguing.
I'm just explaining why I'm
Explaining
right."
why I'm right. That's right up there with I. What was
Paused
it? I
my game to
stopped
be here.
gaming.
I
I paused my game to be
I
here.
paused my game to be here.
Off the
I think that's still my best like graphic tee. Is I paused
it's
my game
elite.
to be here.
I think so too. I think that one's elite. My whole fit is from Cabela's. From the hat to the shirt to the pants is Cabela's thrift. Not
kind of a
thrift.
corporate man.
The clearance rack. Thrift
Okay.
rack. Holy cow!
Yeah. I spent like a bunch of money at Abercrombie recently. So, and that box just
We
came,
all have
so
our
I'm excited
vices.
I'm excited to go through that Abercrombie haul. Maybe I'll make a TikTok about it.
Yeah.
But make a
Malaki
TikTok.
Starks. What do you guys think?
I'm
Malachi
actually.
Starks,
I'm very.
I think he's like the the Abercrombie wool.
I'm actually very interested because Blaiden, you specifically said that you kind of had strong opinions on Starks at the end of last episode, and I think even a time before that you said you had strong opinions on Starks. So clearly you feel some type of way, and I wanted to learn what that was. I've held back on texting you and just asking you straight up, so I could learn now on the podcast.
I do have strong opinions on Starks. He seems to be the consensus top safety in this class. And as I was watching some of the other guys, I started to kind of feel like, okay, maybe I'm being a little too harsh. Because I honestly just don't think it's that deep of a safety class to begin with. But Starks was the first guy that I started watching, and I was watching his tape from 2024. I watched a game against Alabama, which we've watched this game live before, but I was watching it to watch specifically for Starks.
I watched that one.
And I was like, this is not a great performance from him. It was a really, really awful game. And everyone was telling me, you need to watch his 2023 tape because it is so much better. And they're right. But it is kind of a what have you done for me lately league. And when you're putting performances like that on tape where you're not aggressive in your gap decisions, like where to fill, when you do fill, you're not aggressive in finishing the tackle, your pursuit angles are wrong. There's a play where he's supposed to have outside contain. It's 3 receivers to the left. There's a tight end on the right and a running back on the right. It's like clear setup to do a Jalen Milroe option to the field. Like the fastest guy on the field, Starks is supposed to have outside contain there. He bites hard inside and then gets beat to the line of scrimmage, and it's a 60-yard touchdown. And I'm like, there's a few too many plays like that.
There's more.
For me to be, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
And this is all from just that Bama game. Like, there's like 7 or 8 plays from just that one game.
So it's like, I was just gonna add on. He gets locked by the wide receivers a couple times in that game, like totally blocked because he doesn't see the receivers coming from his peripherals. He's hard to block when he can see them. But in that game, they got on him and he didn't expect it, and he gets like completely locked too.
Yeah, no, he got washed down a couple times in blocking. It was just like, I'm like, this is not a good first impression on
the
tape.
Tackling was really bad in that game. That's what stuck out to me, honestly.
Now that is an especially awful performance. I don't think he doesn't have a single game on tape that is that bad, I don't think, outside of that game. But it put me on watch to like, okay, is this really like the safety that everyone thinks he is? Like, is he Hamilton? Is he Branch? Because that's kind of the billing that I feel like he's getting.
Especially Branch.
I mean, you'll see mock drafts or whatever, or big boards that'll have them, in the late, like, top 10 or in the early teens. Definitely. And it's like, that's higher than where Kyle Hamilton went, albeit Kyle Hamilton would go higher in a redraft now. So maybe it's not fair to judge it off of that. But, I mean, safeties going in the top 10 is rare. And I watched that Bama game as well because, like, of course, that's the first one you're going to click on. His tackling in that one was just terrible. He got bulldozed by a tight end. He just whiffed on a couple of others. And I read other scouting reports, and they say he's a good tackler. And you know, I go on PFF, and I'm like, what's his missed tackle percentage? Because that's, I think, one of their stats that's better.
Yeah,
and it's overall good, but in that game in particular, I mean, it was really bad. He was a terrible tackler, and I think it was his lowest PFF grade of the season that year too.
Yeah.
So I get it with Starks because he's rangy and he's really fluid. And sometimes I think that fluidity gets lost like on combine day, but it's super important, right? Because there's a big difference between being a guy who can run straight line and being a guy like Starks. So I see the value in it, and I don't want to judge him too harshly off of his worst performance. But when you're talking about a guy being a top 10 pick at this position, even as somebody who thinks I'm a little bit lower on positional value than the NFL as a whole, right? They've got to be able to do something really special. I feel like it's got to be something where they're like bringing in a different fold to the defense, basically, right?
Yeah,
That's what Kyle Hamilton does. Derwin James, when he was drafted, I mean, he was that type of guy, right? And the positional versatility that he had. I mean, I remember, obviously, he was never going to like do this at the NFL, but you remember he used to like line up at edge for Florida State some plays. And they had, he's one of those guys who had that charts where it's like, here's the snaps at outside corner, here's the snaps, and like that type of stuff. Or like Jamal Adams was that, level of player too.
Yeah, and Hamilton was one of the best prospects I've ever seen. He had a bad combine.
Right.
I thought Branch was deserving of going top 10.
Yeah, Branch was really good too.
Yeah, so I think, if a guy like Brian Branch, who I think was a better prospect than Starks, is going to fall that far just for being a safety, even if it's a different draft class, I have a really hard time seeing him going quite as high as he's billed in some of these drafts.
I think he gets a reputation where he's like amazing at everything, and really he's not amazing at everything. He's like okay at everything. That was my takeaway. It's like there's not a lot of weaknesses to write down, but there is just a lack of just oomph on this tape that I saw with some of the other safeties that exist. I think he's got good tackling technique. Like you try to stiff arm him, and he's good at kind of knocking the hand down and then getting into the tackle. Like he can kind of make some cool tackles like from a technique standpoint, but like, is he really like the biggest, baddest tackler like in the NFL as a safety? Like, no, not even close to that.
Right.
And he drops down. He played a lot of man coverage this year in the slot, and he can do it pretty well, I think. Like, I like how he stays square, mirroring guys off the line of scrimmage. And I think he's a bit of an underrated athlete in some ways, where people make it out like he's quite bad athletically. And I do question his top end speed, and maybe he's a little stiff changing direction. But I think his general fluidity and his twitch and his click and close is all like pretty good.
That's what I thought. I think there's other guys that we'll talk about who are a little bit stiffer than him, I guess, is maybe the thought that I had.
He didn't seem like a bad safety athlete to me, but there are times like in man when he's trying to mirror some of these top wide receivers, like he'll hang with them for a while, but like then as the rep goes on, I think he can fall a bit behind. And he's not picked on at Georgia because he's been like the guy there since his first game. But at the NFL level, when he's just like a rookie, I'm like, just how great of a coverage piece is he going to be? Because like 17-year-old Ryan Williams, right? He torched him, right? Like he could not hang with Ryan Williams. And so it's like, well, Ryan Williams is a great 17-year-old, like absolutely fantastic. But there's a lot of like full-grown men who are really, really good in the NFL.
Is he going to be able to guard DK Metcalf?
Is he going to be able to guard DK be in the slot, but like a lot of guys will be in there. Like, would he be able to guard like a Devontae Adams even? Like, where does he rank? He's just another X in the league right now. It's even as good as he is. So yeah, I just thought like, well, a lot of this nickel tape, like I don't know if I'd want him there so much. And as I think he's best as kind of a traditional safety. He does seem to have good ball skills and a feel for the routes and you know, if he does match up with someone that has to flow with them in man, like he can do it a little bit. I just wouldn't want him there full time. And like he seemed like solid to me. Like you pick him, he's safe. Like he knows what he's doing. Like he's been at this program. Like again, ball skills good. Like tackling kind of interesting, if not the best. Yeah, he's a bit of a do-it-all guy, but I just didn't see like if you put this guy in your back end, it's gonna supercharge everything. Like no one's gonna throw at him. Like no, like I didn't know about that. He seemed like a pretty good startable safety for you, but not like, holy cow, this is an amazing safety prospect. Like I didn't find myself thinking that.
Yeah, PFF has him ranked as their 9th overall prospect, and I don't see it.
I mean, he's not going to go anywhere close to 9, and I wouldn't take him at 9. I don't think. I just don't think he unlocks anything like that, like the way.
No, and that's
even some other safeties could. He's not my safety 1.
He's not my safety 1 either. So I'm glad we can agree on that. Matt, where does he rank for you?
I don't know. I didn't place like I'm sorry.
That's fair. It's kind of.
Where would you take him? How about that?
Where would I take him? It kind of depends on how the board falls, but like I'll be real with you. I don't love him as a first round draft pick. That's kind of where I stand. I think in the second round, I think banking on a little bit of a bounce back because he has put up some good tape, and I agree with the ball skills. Like I think in the second round is where I would start to feel more comfortable about it. But if I was a team that needed a safety, honestly, I just wouldn't be taking one in the first round this year. I don't think. I don't know if I've got a first round grade on any of these guys just quite.
There's one I might take.
Well, who is it?
How about this? It's not Emmanwori.
It's probably is it Watts?
It's probably, yeah.
No, it's not Watts either.
Well, who is it?
It's Mukuba.
He is
a fucking dog,
good. He's incredibly good.
I'd take him in the first round. I would not take.
I like that take.
Yeah, I would take him in the first round. But yeah, let's talk about him. I guess I've given this whole spiel. He is different than Starks as an athlete, I think. Like this guy absolutely flies around. And he's not just posturing when he flies around. I watched him for a while and I was like, okay, he's flying. Like he's running pretty fast. Is he actually going to hit anybody going this speed? Like some safeties, they fly and then they kind of try to bite the ankles at the very end and they lay off and they kind of don't put their whole shoulder into it. I'm like, is this guy actually going to hit somebody? Because if he actually hits somebody going this speed, I'll give him a first round grade right now. And I was watching and he does. And I was watching his 2021 film when he was at Clemson and he was playing Georgia, who were the national champions that year. And he was balling. That was my first introduction to him. Like, okay, he's flying around and he's actually hitting people. And he had a play where he was trying to guard Brock Bowers on a corner route. And as a safety, I like guys who take chances. Like, that is a position that can just float through a game and kind of not do anything if they're just kind of trying to keep a roof on everything and like not giving up the deep ball. Obviously, that's crucial. But to really be like a first round pick at safety, you've got to be able to, break almost before the wide receiver does. Like you got to really kind of take some chances and do it with conviction and do it with speed. And you got to be able to, make the game-saving tackle before the wide receiver has a chance to set up on you, or you got to pick a ball off, or, you got to find a way to impact the game. And I thought he was doing that. Man, there was a play where Bowers ran a corner route, and it was a really nice, flat corner route, but just the speed at which Mukuba broke on it. I hope I'm getting that name right, but...
I think it's Mukuba, right? It's...
Mukuba. I'm thinking of the Mizzou tackle.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
I didn't want to. Yeah,
Manny.
I'm
gonna say his name in one, just blank tone here. Just copy this and paste it when I say, okay, Mukuba.
Yeah, that's gonna.
This definitely
that's gonna be in tone with every sentence you said his name in before. Have faith.
You can't delete this part so that they'll understand later. Okay. Holy cow. I thought of an M name and I don't have his whatever. Anyway.
Mukuba. Yes.
Andrew Mukuba is the first round pick. I am so sorry, Andrew. But at any rate, he breaks on this corner from Bowers, and Bowers catches it because it's such a nice route and it's so flat and his hands are so good. But for Mukuba to break on it at the speed that he did, and he came down and he brought Bowers down on first contact. Like, he kind of fell off and then crawled and then grabbed him by his ankles and got him down. I'm like, that counts, man. Like, Brock Bowers is one of the greatest yak tight ends ever, and you did eventually get him there. And just the general way he was breaking on absolutely everything and making tackles was special. And just that when he brought down Bowers too, I was like, oh, just league this guy. And that was 2021.
What I like about him, I feel like with a lot of these guys too, I'm like, the reaction time just isn't there. It's like they're not reading things out and reacting. With Mukuba, he's like anticipating things and then going and trying to make a play on it. And that alone puts him at another level than a lot of these other dudes. I think his best highlight, one I've seen posted, one I saw when I was watching tape against Georgia, was the dig that he ended up hitting. It was a play action. He stepped in for the run and then anticipated the dig, dropped back and intercepted it. He was moving for that thing before. Why can't I think of Georgia's quarterback's name off the top of my head? You're muted. You're still muted.
He's still muted, but I'm sure it's
glitched.
spitting.
He's glitching? Why can't I think of his name, dude? He's transferred to Miami. I know who this is.
We're cooked as a podcast, but it is Carson Beck. Yeah.
Carson Beck. I mean, yeah. And he knew where...
Podcasting.
He'll be forgotten by history eventually, Matt. You're just ahead of the curve. It might be 100 years, might be 10, might be now.
Real.
But he saw that before, and I totally agree. It's like he flies around and that type of stuff. I mean, like, his functional game speed is very, very good. I don't know what he ran at the combine. I don't care.
4.46?
And the problem, that's very fast.
Pretty good.
The problem with Mukuba is that he's light. I don't know what he weighed at the combine. It probably is not that heavy. And because of that, he's not somebody who is going to have essentially like the speed score that gets people excited. And I totally understand the concerns about, like, okay, he can read things and react and anticipate, and he goes 100%, and he can like actually like functionally use at 100% speed to just go somewhere. Because anyone can go out there and just start running downhill, hypothetically. But to do it with purpose and intent, and then to be running like you are in the 40 time on the field, that's an entirely different thing. He can actually do that. However, in spite of the fact that he can get himself in position to make a play, because he's smaller, it's tougher. His missed tackle rate is not great. It's like 14% or something like that. And frankly, you wouldn't expect that to get better at the NFL level because it's
he's tiny. He's short.
Really
he's got
small.
he's got short, really short arms.
ESPN
so,
had him listed at 6 foot 190. He measured in at the combine at 5'11", 186.
186 is light.
Yeah.
Here's the thing with him, though. Two defenses. Number one, he's so good in coverage, and I agree, he's such a playmaker, and he can actually change the math for a defense a little bit and go out there and be somebody you've really got to think about rather than, like you said, just worry about like keeping the top on the offense or whatever. That where he's projected to go now, I think he's a great value guy to go and grab and let him do that in coverage and potentially maybe not have, him be the biggest factor in run support all the time. Okay, like that's a role for sure in the NFL. The other thing is that I believe that if you get down there and you even disrupt the play, if you're downhill and you can get to the running back and like get hands on him, you might not make the tackle. There's a big difference. I'll tell you what, there's guys who they could have a 0% missed tackle rate and they still wouldn't be the run defender that Mukuba is because they can't ever get to the running back. They can't get downhill. They can't get through their gap. So it makes no difference. Great, you're letting them come to you, or you're like taking a bad angle and then chasing them for 20 yards, but you always get that tackle after 20 yards. Or I can get the guy who maybe will miss it sometimes, but is downhill in the backfield, slows him up, and then I've got other dudes swarming. Give me him. I don't know if I would quite have a first round grade on him because the size at 186 is definitely starting to get into drastic position. But
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where he is on grinding the mocks or whatever. But I would suspect that like he's considered like a 3rd round guy or like maybe even a 4th round guy, like in sort of that range. I bet you he's
If he
kind of
gets in the
considered
goes in
where
the 4th
Tez
round,
is.
I would.
And maybe I'm totally making that up and I'm being like everyone's allowed,
No,
like
I
making
don't
up an
think you're
opinion
right.
to disagree with.
I don't think you're
Um,
crazy for saying that based on what I've seen. It just
But-
blows my mind personally.
But it's like I just think once you get that late, it's like it's leaning too heavily on like one aspect of them as a player and just denying what you saw. Mind you, I mean, this guy played at Texas. He went and played big time ball against big time athletes. You know, this isn't some guy who is like messing around in like the MAC or whatever, and you've got to think like, oh well, I don't know. Like it's not like that, dude.
Come on, man.
My fault.
Mac disrespect in 2025.
Not in the. I can't do Mountain West. I don't know the AAC. Sunbelt. He wasn't messing around in the Sunbelt.
He wasn't messing around in the Big 12.
Come on now. We're in the Big 12, buddy.
What? ASU?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they won the conference. Like,
Yeah.
what does that say about the conference?
It
No
says,
offense,
it says a
ASU.
lot of
But little Cam Scatabo got us crushed this conference.
Cam Scatabo put the
Bears.
conference on his back.
He put the conference on his back. If we had Jalen Milrow, like we would have been
Would've been scary.
A-okay, and he wouldn't even had to attempt to pass.
Would have looked like the
So
Eagles
I
this
just-
year.
I just think in general the teams get like too caught up, and fans do as well. It's like, you know, go look at how good the average 3rd rounder is. You give me somebody who I know has like the talent and the IQ and like all of that stuff, but maybe is more limited in this way, or is maybe going to have a drawback that they have to overcome. And it's just starting to get in the range where I got to value how good the player actually is over anything else. I understand that safety is one of the less valuable positions, and maybe you feel like it's not worth taking that risk. But to me, I just kind of disagree with that. I think I would take him higher than that. And if a team took him at the back of the 1st round, I would probably, it would be a little rich. It would depend who was on the board, but I'd probably end up being one of the defenders of a move like that because I just do think he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, let him fall. Fine with me. He's just a dog. I mean, I was watching a lot of Drake Greenlaw this week too because he signed with the Broncos and just reminiscing on how much of a dog he is and like how good of a linebacker he was and still probably is for the Broncos and how that's going to change their defense. That guy weighed in at the combine 231. He was a 5'11 linebacker with 32-inch arm, horrible agility testing. Like didn't run a very fast 40, 4.7. Like that guy's one of the best linebackers in the entire NFL. So
Yeah.
We've lost the combine doesn't matter war. That's been, I feel like 5 years ago. Tell me if I'm making this up. Tell me if I'm making up people to get mad at. I feel like 5 years ago, you would hear that like nonstop, not to overthink the combine, not to worry about the 40 times. The year after John Ross wasn't that good, dude, everyone was on the same team here. And there would always be a little bit of like, oh, wow, this guy ran fast. I remember being in class and we were watching the 40 times like it was March Madness or whatever. Because, you know, like, why not?
yeah. Definitely.
But now it's like, I just feel like people have like far overestimated it and overvalued it. And there's less sort of pushback on like, hey, this doesn't matter. And maybe that's because like people are just like kind of trying not to be a buzzkill on social media, which I know there's like a pretty decent contingent of sports fans who are just kind of like sick of the negativity, which I get.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think it's negative to be like, if this guy doesn't weigh that much, he can still be a good player. Or if this guy ran a 40 time that was a 10th of a second faster, that wouldn't make him good. And we should just be thinking about how they look on the field more. Not that even Mukuba even had like some bad combine, but just in general, you know.
I do wonder how much of a role it plays that players are becoming so hyper specific in what they're participating in at the combine that like when they do participate in something, it's like it stands out. Like how many, it's like pretty much all the receivers run the 40, but they don't bench press ever anymore, right? Jalen Milroe didn't participate in any of like the athletic testing, and then he chose to throw. It's just like whatever you choose to do just kind of gets amplified in that way. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but
Yeah, I feel like the way the combine is just covered sometimes is more the issue. Like I don't know if there's anything wrong with eliminating, maybe certain guys based on some things, and just as media, maybe just choosing not to watch certain guys. Like, oh man, they're below this threshold, and statistically, it's true that like I 1 out of 30 hits in if you run below this time. So it's like I'm just not even. I wouldn't even want to take a dart throw just because we only have limited times and resources to pull this thing together. And like if there's just this swath where the hit rate is like 1%, like I'd rather just not even look at it. Like I can kind of understand it from that point of view, but with guys like Mukuba, I'm just not willing to write him off because of his size, because the tape is so good.
Because you can watch the players. This is the thing. You're not like, these aren't like hypothetical guys who are like being randomly generated by Madden or whatever.
Yeah, it's not like a Madden
where you like
franchise.
You know the odds. Yeah, sometimes a guy is undersized and that will make it harder for them to do a certain thing. But then you can watch them and be like, okay, well, they are doing it. I mean, a guy that I even got a little bit lower on last year because of his RAS score, Bucky Irving, he was like a 2.3 at running back. But when we watched him, it's like, dude, he just is breaking tackles, though. He just is doing it, and he is shifty, and it is, his game does come together well. And like maybe to some extent, it's just like luck, and you only remember the times that you get those guys right rather than get those guys wrong. Like I'm not ignorant of that, but I don't know. I just think with some of these dudes, like some of these guys where it's like, they seemed like just a guy to me, and then they run slow. And it's like, yeah, okay, I probably wouldn't take that guy. But if somebody seems special, if someone where it's like you can clearly see what type of game they're going to translate to, like Tez Johnson this year's the big example, right?
Yeah.
And he's the ultimate extreme outlier. I mean, is he the lightest player ever in combine history? And I still think that he's going to find some sort of role in the NFL. Maybe there's a risk that he's so light that he can't hang, or that he's like so light that he gets injured. Yes. And that should be factored into his price. But I think it's bad strategy to take a guy like that off of your board when they clearly have certain traits, because as you do that and you take, it's almost like fantasy football, where if you had these rigid rules going into a draft of what you're going to do, and you just start taking a bunch of guys off your board, it feels like it's impossible to actually have a good draft. I think the same is true in the NFL. The more guys you take off your board, the more hard limits you have. It might feel like you're making the odds for yourself better, but then it makes it really easy to like get to your pick and be the team that's always reaching on a guy because they're outsmarting everybody because they need to have them in this certain box of what a player is. And I think a lot of teams sometimes take the team building approach of, if we want to do this, we have to do this, and we're going to find the guy to do that. And of course, everyone has to do that to like a decent, like a lot. But I think it's better to keep guys like that on your radar and be able to work around and build the players you actually see, because it's not like you're shopping at the grocery store when you're drafting players. It's everybody's unique, and nobody is a perfect comp to anybody else, and no one situation is the same, and there's outliers, and you should take that into account. So I don't know.
I like your Colin Cowherd reference today, Matt. It's not like you're shopping at the grocery store.
Is that a Cowherd thing?
I don't know. It just sounds like something he might.
It does sound like it. Totally does sound like a Cowherd thing. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's something I like memory hold that Cowherd said and then have brought up thinking it was my own.
The whole team building thing has gotten a little bit crazy. Like I've seen a lot of people talk about like the way the Seahawks went, and it's like, oh well, it's like, yeah, Geno might be better than Darnold, and DK and Lockett might have been better than like Kupp and Valdez-Scantling, but it's just like, it's a better scheme fit. And I'm like, if your scheme fit is just like getting worse players, then that's probably a problem with your coaching staff more than like a problem with your players, I would say.
This Combine Talks brings us well into the next player that we should probably talk about, which is Nick Emmanwori, who had the greatest combine in safety history.
Safety history, yeah.
He is the most athletic safety to ever walk the earth. He ran a 4.38. He jumped 43 inches up into the air for his vertical, 11'6" broad jump, and pounded out 20 reps on the bench press. And he did the agility, or he didn't do the agility drills. He skipped those. So I turned on the tape, and that was kind of the first thing I was looking for. Was like, hey, is this guy crazy agile to go along with it? And his feet move better than I thought. I thought he was actually like could have done those and like done something.
It's not
that
the
maybe would have yeah. But I was kind of impressed with that. Like I was like, if this guy did run the agility drills, I mean maybe not because he didn't do them. Maybe it would have knocked him out of the most athletic safety of all time range. But I thought they would have been pretty impressive. Like he seemed to me like a pretty good like drive on the football guy, like change of direction guy. Like there was the route that is coming to my mind is this play against LSU where the LSU guy is looking like he's going to run a crosser and then he turns hard to the outside and ends up running some sort of outbreaker. And you've got Emmanwori like in his back pedal, which is very smooth, like just very smooth back pedal. That route fakes inside and then goes out, and just the way he's able to kind of mirror that footwork and get in front of that route, and then he detaches and tackles the check down. I was like, okay, this guy pretty consistently is, getting where he needs to go. It's like, again, the smooth back pedal. Like I wouldn't want to test him very deep because I do think he can move out there and he's got that kind of range, and his sideline to sideline speed is also really crazy. That's getting out of agility though. Like I thought he was worth the billing as just a pure athlete when I watched him on film. I thought for the most part, but it sounds like Blaiden, you're kind of saying there's some.
It's not even. I think as a pure athlete, yeah, absolutely. But like I would say that the reason he didn't do the agility drills is more of hips than foot speed, which I would say is a bigger issue if he were a corner than being a safety. There isn't a lot of like need for hard speed turns. It's just like the hip movement isn't quite the same. Like you're not going to be lined up in press and you need to open up your hips and like bail a lot. Like he's not going to be doing a lot of that. So I don't think it's a huge concern. I do think he's probably going to be my top safety in this class just based on the athleticism. And it's just when I think a lot of these safeties do kind of fit in a similar archetype where it's like, I kind of want most of them just to kind of sit back and be like a true cover 3 or cover 1 guy. Or even like in, two high shells. Like I don't want all of these guys in the box. And if I'm picking between like 3 guys to be that, I want just like the freakiest athlete that can go sideline to sideline. And to me, Emmanwori is that.
Yeah, he's tough to break a big run on. He's someone that always seems to get there when runs are headed up the sideline, just takes good angles, has the crazy speed. He tracked down Milroe in the Alabama game, and it looked so easy for him. And he came from the other side of the field, and he just ran him down. That's not easy to do whatsoever. I
wanted to see Milroe run the 40 so bad.
He would have been fast. He would have been so fast. But I guess my problem with Emmanwori, even though I think he's a cool piece in coverage because of how tall he is and how much ground he can cover, I kind of didn't like his reaction times, like you were talking about earlier with Mukuba, Matt. I just didn't think he was, even though he's kind of built like Kyle Hamilton and he's faster than Kyle Hamilton. And that's kind of the natural thing when you see this big ass, tall safety in this smooth ass back pedal. You're like, could it be? But with Hamilton, he would get there so fast, like just in an absolute
Hamilton's got
blink.
Like the best reaction.
He does, and he's an extreme example, right? But then
that's the type of comps that he's getting.
That's the kind of comps that he's getting. And with Emmanwori, it's kind of the opposite, where it's like he's just never there first somehow, and he's the fastest, tallest, longest strider on the field. Like, how is he never there first? That was always kind of going through my head. Like, he doesn't play the style of game that leads to turnovers or a lot of big impact plays over the course of the game, I thought. So even though he's super athletic and killed the combine, like the best safeties in the league, like did not kill the combine. Like Hamilton did not kill the combine. Branch did not kill the combine. Xavier McKinney, he did not kill the combine. Like Derwin did, definitely. But, you know, it's not really the position that I care about it for the most. I know that whole, we were on that tirade. I think, you know, it's not the most valuable tool, but for some positions it's more than others. And for safety, I'm really not too stunned by a great combine or put off by a bad one, like especially at that position.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think with him, the combine has made people forget that he's kind of a project, I think. I feel like that's the thing. There are plays where he trusts himself or he sees it quickly and he flies downfield and you're like, great. This is one of, a great, amazing all-time safety athlete. And there are a lot of plays where he is second guessing himself or not anticipating what's going to happen, or just like in man coverage, kind of like waiting to react. And then he doesn't really have like the hips to be like so crazy that it's necessarily always going to make up for it just because he's fast. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think it can get better. I think there's enough good moments and times where he does make a play in coverage, like flying around or just having more range than people expect. Or he does make a play going downhill or makes a big time tackle or blows something up. Where I think he's a project. I feel like people are just kind of anti-project almost on Twitter sometimes. And I think he's a very worthwhile one because he's young and you can get better.
I don't know if people are anti-project based on this draft. They think well, maybe Shamar Stewart is going first overall and is Myles Garrett.
Well, I'm just tapped into Michael Williams. That's like the one guy, I guess, where it's like everyone's like that one project, everyone is against. Maybe they'll end up being right, but it's like
I would say that
the Tank
Shador
Lawrence
is a project, but people like I'll be like, yeah, Shador holds the ball way too long. They're like, no, but we can fix that, and I'm like, can't you stop?
No player is perfect, so I think it's reasonable to think like he might be able to get better. I think that's totally understandable, but at the same time, like the reaction time, the ability to like see and anticipate stuff, for the record, like doing that at a high level at speed when you're like on the field, not seeing it from all 22 angle, it's like impossible. It's like it's incredibly difficult. I mean, that's why there's like a handful of guys who can do it at a super high level. So there is some part of it where I'm like, are you trying to teach him the hard thing? Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that makes me worried. But while I think the combine is only so much, I do think he's enough playmaker where he's worth taking a shot on. He's a good player.
Oh, yeah. He's a good player, especially in coverage. And especially for a scheme that needs an athlete like that, like the Vikings or the Colts with Luanarumo, they might start their safety in the A gap and then have him play the deep half. And if that's your strategy, you can kind of let the scheme do the tricking for guys, and just as long as they can cover ground.
With Emmanwori would be crazy.
So I in certain schemes I can see that, but it just I saw him bite on a pump fake when the running back had the ball. What?
It's I was like,
just what was your question, Matt?
Oh, I was gonna try to move on to the next prospect as we were talking about guys who I think their reaction time is bad.
I was gonna give an alternate comp for him other than like Hamilton.
Go for it.
I think Browns fan in me. I think he's a lot closer to Delpit.
I like the Jeremy Chin. Like Jeremy Chin's a crazy athlete, like a 10 out of 10 athlete, but he's not necessarily a game-changing player. Like I could see that. Like he's a cool piece in coverage, but I still think there's some things that Jeremy Chin does better. Like another thing about Emmanwori, I thought he was an insane tackler because I watched the Mizzou game and he was 2 for 2 in the open field, bringing down Luther Burden, who had made everybody miss to that point.
Exactly.
But the more I watched, the more I was like, okay, there's enough misses and bad form here that I'm willing to call him inconsistent. All right. He might be a great tackler one day where if he can bring down Burden like that and he's so big and strong, but he leaves his feet too early. He's got them both in the ground and he doesn't kind of fully commit. He just kind of like half-heartedly lunges forward. And he does not do the Starks thing where Starks like he's really good at, like I said, deconstructing the stiff arm and kind of doing some things to maximize his ability to actually bring the guy down. I feel like Mukuba, not Mukuba, Jesus today, Theo. I feel like Emmanwori just is kind of diving and he's hoping for the best. And he's so athletic that like sometimes he can wrangle guys and snare them with his arms and take them down, wrestle them down in a kind of a impressive way. But overall, I didn't know if he was the most aggressive tackler. He was very hesitant whenever he was in the box, filling downhill. It was driving me crazy. There was like a goal line stand for Alabama that he was out there on. He was just standing there. It's like, bro,
dude, Starks did the
you gotta get there, man. You gotta take a chance and run after somebody. Like you can't just stand there and hope that somebody else gets him. And that's what he was doing in that Bama game a lot. I thought he was in the middle of a lot of like miscommunications. I thought when he was one-on-one in man coverage, like he wasn't ascertaining like what direction the route would break, and he was very reactive. Like, again, love the way he was moving in coverage and think he could be a very fascinating piece back there. But, and again, like the fact that it's very hard to break any kind of big run while he's patrolling is valuable. And maybe he just needs a coach in his ear. Like if Tomlin was in there with his charisma and his motivational ways, he's like, just trust what you see, man. Maybe it would click in his head and he'd be like, oh my God, then he'd become the greatest safety ever. Like it's possible. He just needs a little bit of a encouragement and decisiveness. But he's going to a whole new league with even where everybody is a great athlete and everybody is just 2 steps ahead of him. I'm concerned. I'm kind of out on him a little bit, as definitely as a first round pick. I am a sucker for the freak athletes. Yeah.
Well, everybody is to some extent. We all are to some. Nobody's sitting here like I don't care at all. Like I care.
I don't care at all that he's the.
But you have to fight that instinct as much as possible. Yeah. When the tape doesn't line up.
I don't know. I didn't. When you look at my draft take history, I don't know if you do have to fight it as much as you possibly can. Richardson's still going to be good, man. But
it's coming.
It's coming. I still believe that with my entire heart.
Daniel Jones breathing down his neck. He's going to lock in this year.
He's going to lock in this year. But Emmanwori, I think that I think Richardson was a better prospect than Emmanwori. If we want to make a comp that
I don't disagree with you. I don't. Matt,
that would be a hilarious comp. If like Anthony Richardson played safety, it's like means like nothing. He's just a good athlete.
People comment on my TikTok of him like the Anthony Richardson of safeties. I'm like, whoa, man, I love Anthony Richardson to this day. So don't
real.
Don't respond to my video calling him a combine merchant, even though it's kind of been proven that he was a combine merchant, at least to some extent. But we knew that, man. He's younger than most of the rookies, man. Anyway, we should talk about the next bro.
He's still 20.
He's 19, bro. Come on, bro.
Did you guys watch Kevin Winston Jr.?
What number was he?
Penn State.
Yeah, what number?
I'd look at the yellow arrow, big man.
Bro, you don't know the number?
I do. I
don't know the player. But is he number 1 or number 3?
I think he's 2.
What? Then I didn't watch him. I watched number 1 and number 3 on Penn State.
Kevin Winston Jr. is the Penn State safety who got hurt at the start of last year, tore his ACL week 2. I am really not a big fan of him. I think his reaction time and like reading things out ability is it's really bad. There's times the running back gets the ball and he's just kind of like backpedaling to backpedal to like not sort of like commit to doing anything. There's in particular one play, 2023 against Michigan, start of the second quarter. You can go look at it where it's like a super duper jumbo set that Michigan runs. I'm talking like 7 offensive linemen. This is on like first down. 7 offensive linemen, a fullback in the backfield, running back out, and then like some like tight end out wide, and that's it. And regardless, he's playing like he's kind of jumping around like 10 yards back and like and he just starts backpedaling anyway. It's like there's one guy. The tight end doesn't even like pretend to do anything other than block. Everyone up front is just doing nothing but pretending to block. And it's like he's expecting, like, I guess, some grand trick play is the idea. But it takes until, I forget who was running the ball, but probably Edwards, gets past the line of scrimmage before he even makes an attempt to try to get downhill and fill in his gap and make any sort of play. Then he runs into the referee, which I saw him do like 3 or 4 times in this game.
Ref's gotta get out of the way, man.
The ref does have to get out of the way, but you cannot like just be bumbling into the ref, I'm afraid. It does, like, if you can't deal with somebody who's like not even trying to get in your way and you can't fight through that traffic, it's going to be tough to fight through the traffic that people are trying to get you stuck in. You know what I mean? And then he takes a poor angle on it, ends up being a 20-yard run. And I think there was a lot of plays like that for me where he just wasn't very aggressive getting downhill. He's also a good athlete. I don't know what his combine numbers were off the top of my head, or if he even, maybe he didn't like run at the combine because he tore his ACL during the season.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing about Starks too. Starks got hurt in spring, and so everyone's like, "Well, maybe he had a down year because he was like coming off the injury." So I don't.
Yeah. So I just wasn't a very big fan of his tape and that type of stuff. And maybe you could say, well, you're higher on Emmanwori, and that's also an athlete who maybe doesn't have the reaction. But I just thought with Winston, it was far more clear to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be worse than what Emmanwori is. I watched the other 2 safeties from Penn State, number 1 and number 3, who were kind of dogs, I will say. Why can't I find... Okay. I can now finally tell who is who. Jalen Reed, that guy might have something to him, I think. He's also in this draft. I didn't watch your guy, but Jalen Reed is somebody who was a big playmaker for Penn State last year. His week 1 versus West Virginia is hilarious film. Some of it is kind of luck, like they fumble a snap and he recovers the ball or something like that. But the amount of plays that he made in the first game of the season this year is actually hilarious. Like, it might be the hottest a safety has ever gotten. Like, there's no way to test this, but he had like a Clay 37-point quarter for a college safety. It was so ridiculous. But he was somebody that was, just constantly around the football. And so was number 3, although I don't have full scouting reports on them. The last guy I want to talk about is Watts.
Got to.
Yeah.
I liked him too.
Yeah,
he seemed to have really good feel for things. Like
absolutely, which is shocking because he's one of those guys who wasn't even recruited as a safety. He's a 4-star wide receiver recruit.
Interesting. But he was great. I mean, I thought
that checks out the number of picks he had.
Yeah, he has huge production on the ball, which I like. It kind of signals to me that, hey, he might have production on the ball in the NFL as well. Mm-hmm. And groundbreaking analysis, I know. And he was just somebody who off the ball just had so much confidence in himself and his technique. And even though I don't think he's the craziest athlete either, he is somebody who just has such feel for where the routes are going to go and never really seems to panic. And even when the wide receiver makes a break and kind of gets in his blind spot for a second, like, he's just so easily able to kind of turn and relocate that guy. And just to me was very impressive, mirroring the whole way through the route. He was in a situation where I saw him like try to defend a slot fade one-on-one from off coverage. Just not the type of thing he would expect. This was versus, you would expect him to be good at. This was versus Texas. And like eventually, like 40 yards down the field, he lost. But by that point, Ewers had moved off the read. So he's looking at the slot, expecting him to get open. But Watts is just in such the smooth back pedal and then like bails with this receiver, like just at the right time, like just as he really hits that speed boost to go vertical and Watts really knows it's there. Maybe the wide receiver's back was staying flat, like just reading the body language and being able to know that vertical is coming without over, like some guys to play vertical just right off the bat. They're like, I'm scared. And then they get beat underneath. Like it was just so well timed with Watts and he just never is out of position whatsoever. Like I started watching these games from the quarterback's point of view, almost like what the safety so often doesn't impact the play. So, like, let's see if the quarterback just is totally ignoring him or, just looking at him, just peeking at him to begin the play and then, like, moving right off. And that was always what was happening to these guys playing Notre Dame is, like, wherever Watts was, the quarterback's eyes just went the opposite way. And whenever they were looking at him, yeah, he just didn't seem to be giving up anything much. So he was somebody that intrigued me even. I don't know if more than Emmanwori because, again, like Emmanwori, maybe it just is a little bit of coaching for him and he gets good fast. But with Watts, the production on the ball and like just the smoothness, and he's getting better too. If he's this recent recruit and new guy to this position, like those two might be my 1 and 2. I wasn't totally in love with Starks and Emmanwori in this class as the best guys.
Watts, when I first started, I started off watching just like highlights, and I was like, damn, he's got a lot of interceptions. Like, what's with all this production? I just got to see it, man.
Yeah.
So, but I noticed like a lot of these interceptions were like tipped off the receiver's hands. And so I was like, let me go into the tape a little bit, and I just want to see like his positioning on these, because to some, I'm like, how is it that you're catching like 4 picks off a receiver's hands? Like, you've got to be doing something right in order for that to play out. And I do think that in a lot of these situations, like you mentioned, Theo, he is always just kind of like in the right spot, playing on these routes at the right moment. To the point where, like, I even think that if these receivers were to like actually be able to secure these catches, he's probably like a yard or 2 away most of the time, and he's going to either deliver a hit on that route, or he's going to be able to like stick his hand through and try and break up that pass. So I do think that it's not like luck that he's getting these interceptions. I do think a lot of it is like he's already closing, and I do wonder if that is impacting the quarterback a little bit. Like, he sees Watts close on this ball. He's like, oh, I might have to put this a little wide so that my receiver can actually have a chance at this catch. And it ends up being an inaccurate ball. I do like him a decent amount. I like him more than Starks for sure. Yeah, right now, Emmanwori and Watts are probably my 1-2. I mean, those, I think, like you mentioned, Emmanwori could just be a coaching thing. And Watts, I think he does kind of already have like the mindset, the technique to kind of play right away.
Just the willingness to take a chance is, that's ultimately what it came down to me. Is like one of these rookie safeties is going to be the best, and I just feel like it's the guy who's willing to go out there and really take the ball. Someone's going to be the best. This is the episode of obvious statements. But I really think it's going to be the guy. It's not the guy who runs the fastest or jumps the highest. It's going to be the guy who does the most to take the ball away. And when I was watching these guys, it just seemed like Watts and Mukuba just seemed like they were going to do that more than Starks and Emmanwori.
Matt, you're muted, but I'm sure you're spitting.
I am spitting. I'm probably just not going to tell you what I was saying. No, I think Watts obviously is like, I don't think he was the greatest tackler. I know his tackle rate wasn't that awesome. I think a lot of the concerns with him are like the speed overall. I feel like I've seen a lot of stuff where it's like, but his straight line speed isn't that good. And I think the take absolutely should be people are overestimating that. It sounds like it would be the end of the world if he's not some like blazing fast guy. And I don't even know what his combine number was, but I think he was perfectly fast enough. And I think you have to be really fast to make up for having a great feel and reaction time. You have to be really slow for your great feel and reaction time not to matter. So I like Watts. I'm definitely in his corner for sure.
I'm trying to find his 40 time. I'm not.
Maybe he didn't run. I don't know.
4.49. That's
good anyway. It's not crazy for a safety. It's not. He's not gonna. Maybe he won't be that great of like a Madden card and Ultimate Team potentially, but. If I was taking him in the NFL draft, I probably wouldn't worry too much about that.
Yeah. What? 0.04 seconds slower than Mukuba?
Okay. Yeah. I'd definitely be most worried about the tackling. That did seem to be a bit of a
but that's also something where it's like,
it is annoying if like he's the last line of defense and
no,
he
it's
misses his tackle.
annoying when he lets up like a big play.
Touchdown.
It's annoying.
It does make me
no, but I here's the thing. You can view Emmanwori as a project, and people are like, yeah, because like he's like this crazy athlete. But someone like Watts, where it's like he's not maybe like a nuts athlete, but he actually like his big like the tackling, you could totally project that to get better from somebody who switched over from playing wide receiver 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But because it's not like he wasn't a combine warrior, you're never going to be able to get the this is a project guy label, even if it's just in one part of your game and even if it makes sense. So I think I actually might have Watts above Emmanwori. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I mean, it's, you know, Emmanwori could end up being like awesome. Obviously, like the boom there is like a special type of player, you know, but
yeah, he had yeah, I agree. I think this is a safety class for some chaos at the consensus top 2 guys. I don't think that they need to be the consensus top 2 guys. This is really the position group that I disagree with the most on that, and we'll see how it plays out.
Big board, yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely the one where usually I'm like, okay, yeah, Ward QB1, that makes sense. Genty RB1, Hunter, Golden, those all 5. I'm like, yeah, those are legit. Will Campbell, I don't have too strong a take on. The Georgia center is sweet. Some of them are very low on Mason Graham because of the size. I'm not really one of them though. So there's that, and Hunter is the top edge.
Graham's too good.
We'll see about corners. We haven't done our corners episode yet. But as far we've been going through all the top.
Have we done a QB episode?
No, we haven't done a QB episode yet, and we should by the end. And tight ends like Warren, I like it.
Yeah,
Fannin, people are trying to push down the board, but I even still like him. So they can't make me dislike the top consensus guys from 3 months ago. I won't do it except for the safeties.
Real. Yeah.
We do need to do a QBs episode, even though there's only 2 guys. We've kind of talked about them. Like,
we got to talk about Dart. We got to talk about Dart at some point.
You got to talk about Dart. Well, this is what I was going to say is like, I want to see one of these days, one of these like, no guys, actually, bro, this dude, like one of those quarterbacks that there seems to be now every draft cycle is going to hit, and it'll be glorious. And I want to see if it's this year with Dart. My suspicion, without having watched a ton of Dart, is that Ole Miss's offense is like completely, I mean, it's like, you know, RPO.
No,
mega heavy.
What's gonna piss me off is if Dart gets a chance and Corral never. Like, come on.
I got bad news. If that's gonna happen, it's gonna piss you off, dude. It's how it's going.
What's really gonna piss you off is that Corral did get a chance, and his chance is actually ongoing as the starting quarterback in a football league.
He never got a chance.
But we'll see. I haven't watched him. Maybe I shouldn't be judgmental. But last year it was like Spencer Rattler.
Spencer Rattler kind of didn't do too terrible his rookie year, did he?
Yep.
Did he do that terrible?
I don't want to hate on Rattler. He has his Rattler is very inconsistent though all of the time. So him coming to the NFL and then being kind of inconsistent, it's like
Rattler.
Maybe I shouldn't hate. Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't.
I can't hate because his wide receiver situation was actually terrible.
That's true. His wide receiver situation was that. And Rattler,
Shaheed and Olave were out for the year when he came in, and Bub Means like balled out for one game and then got hurt or left. I never saw him again, and I don't know why. I assume he got hurt. So then it was like, who even was it out there? Like I knew it at one point because for some reason I watched a decent amount of Saints film, but I still remember who the wide receivers were. I remember like
the group for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like my hear me out guy is just going to be Milroe.
I agree. I think Milroe is going to be a hear me out guy.
We watched one game of Milroe and he looked pretty good, and then I watched another game of Milroe. Frankly, I just watched like a regular game on TV. I'm like, oh my god, dude.
Here's the thing.
That's fair.
Milroe's stock actually started pretty high, like coming into the season. And then he had like 3 absolutely horrid games. And everyone was like, I'm out. No,
I mean, I think he's part of the reason why. Maybe probably Alabama fans listening to this know better than me. I think he's part of the reason why Alabama did not make the playoffs this year. From what I could tell, I think he was like pretty bad when he was bad. But I'll say
he's bad.
But I've won. And here's the thing: if Milroe had a good, like, he absolutely had the potential to be the number 1 overall pick. He could be, if he had a great year, he'd be the runaway number 1 overall pick with the tools that he has. Like, he could have been. And even if he had only been like fine and like it was like looked like a project, it's like, I don't know where Milroe's projected right now, but I see him like around as like,
I think he could have really skyrocketed his stock by running the 40. Like,
possibly.
Maybe. I mean, people know he's fast. Like, would he run a 4.3 and then people were like, "Yo, this guy's fast."
I'm telling you,
like, if you do that, you are.
Would they do that?
I think he could
they
have
would.
ran. I think he could have ran like sub 4.3. I think 4.29 is in his wheelhouse.
Maybe a 4.29 would have skyrocketed his stock.
He absolutely would. Look, it might not have meant anything on draft night. It could be one of those things where it's like Twitter goes crazy, but then like the NFL doesn't do anything, and it's like, this guy's gonna go this high, and then he just like falls to where he was supposed to go the whole time. Like, that could have happened. But you're telling me that people would have been like, we already knew he's fast, he's not moving up my board if he ran a 4.32? No, that was not what would happen. That isn't.
Okay, maybe if he ran a 4.2, that would happen. But like, if clearly he doesn't run that time, otherwise he would.
If he ran any time below 4.4, yeah, it would be like, it would be first round pick talks.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. Now, I don't think I get why he didn't. I'm not saying he's dumb not to, because like.
Yeah.
They don't hang banners for like would be taken in the first round by certain Twitter
is
users.
history. I think this is a microaggression. This whole conversation that you two are having towards Anthony Richardson, implying that he shot up to number 4 overall because of his combine.
That's not what I'm saying.
Stellar tape.
You didn't do that. I didn't mean you. I don't think that you did that.
His stellar tape.
No, it's almost better. You don't want to be. Yeah, no, I put Anthony Richardson that high because of how he played in college.
The combine had nothing to do with it, and I think that that's the implication that's happening here. And I'm still very sensitive.
Now, here's the thing: if Milroe goes crazy at his pro day, then he's Zach Wilson.
That hand time 40 is going to be something special.
Dude, pro days.
Yeah.
Whatever, man. I'm not talking. I don't want to talk anymore about how much different pre-draft processes matter, but I'm excited for the QB pro day season. But
we need to have the stay hot day where we have a bunch of NFL draft prospects come out to my house in Columbus, Ohio, and
we time them.
Yeah, they'll just run the 40 like in the street, and
the real like we'll call it the real combine, and it's just not on a field. It's just we're going to the park nearest Blaiden's house, and we're seeing how fast you can go up and down the slide.
That's so true. That's what it'll be.
Yep.
Is there anyone else that you guys want to talk about safety wise?
I didn't have anybody.
No. There's the Iowa guy, but I didn't quite get to him, so I apologize.
I see a lot of people. I've seen Malachi Moore rising on a lot of boards, but I don't have anything to say about him. So
yeah, I was spending too much time bird watching and too little time watching Safeties this week, which is why I was saying such obvious things. So I'm sorry everybody for being a fraud, but I'm gonna redeem myself when Mukuba goes crazy this year.
Anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. We'll be back next time to talk about something. We'll probably do our mock draft. That'll probably be what we eventually do because we still haven't done that. Idea. It is a good idea. But until then and until next time, thank you all so much. And as always, from your 3 favorite fellas here, we will catch you on the flippity flop.